Have you ever wondered how unexpected connections can transform a lonely life into one filled with joy and purpose? In today's video, we're diving deep into a powerful story of resilience, love, and the remarkable bond formed between two women from vastly different backgrounds. This narrative isn't just about survival. It's about the profound impact of kindness and how it can create a sense of family even when blood ties are absent. As we explore this touching tale, you'll discover how a chance encounter in a moment of vulnerability led to an unbreakable friendship that changed their lives forever. We'll uncover valuable life lessons about opening your heart to love, the importance of community, and how sharing our lives with others can lead to unexpected happiness. Stay with us until the end, where we'll reveal essential insights that can help you navigate your relationships and encourage you to embrace the beauty of connection, no matter your circumstances. Don't miss the chance to learn how acts of kindness can lead to a fulfilling life, proving that it's never too late to find companionship and warmth, even in the most unexpected places. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Looking back on my marriage, it feels as if I lived through an endless storm, a journey that began with so much promise yet ended in disillusionment and heartbreak. When my husband was alive, our relationship was anything but peaceful. What started as a marriage filled with joy, warmth, and shared dreams slowly unraveled before my eyes. I still remember the early days of our union, filled with hope, laughter, and the belief that we had a love strong enough to overcome anything life might throw our way. We were young, idealistic, and madly in love, certain that we could build a beautiful future together. But as time went on, that initial happiness faded. Disagreements became more frequent, and soon, constant arguments filled the spaces where love and understanding used to be. Each argument seemed to carve a deeper wound into our relationship, and little by little, the bonds of our marriage began to deteriorate. We drifted further apart with every harsh word, every night spent in silence, and every moment of anger that went unhealed. It was as though the foundation we had once built was slowly crumbling beneath our feet, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to hold it together. Deep within, I harbored a quiet wish, a yearning to live peacefully on my own, free from the turmoil that had come to define my daily life. Thoughts of divorce crept into my mind more times than I could count. There were nights I lay awake, imagining what it would be like to live in a space where I could finally breathe, unburdened by the weight of our failing marriage. But the times were different, and society's expectations loomed over me like an invisible cage. Divorce was considered scandalous, an option for only the boldest of women, and I was not raised to defy the values that had been instilled in me since childhood. My parents, who held traditional beliefs, warned me sternly against even entertaining the idea of leaving my husband. They told me time and time again that as a woman unable to have children, divorce would ruin any chance I might have of remarrying. They spoke of shame, of loneliness, of the harsh reality they believed awaited any divorced woman without children. So there I was, trapped not only by the societal rules of the time but also by my inability to bear children, a reality that made the life I desired seem impossibly out of reach. If only I'd known before marriage that I couldn't have children, I would have made different choices. I would have spared both of us the pain that would later unfold. But back then, I was young, innocent in my understanding of life's complexities, and deeply in love. We married out of genuine love, without any outside pressures, believing that we were destined to build a life together. Yet, the moment it became clear that children were not in our future, an invisible shadow seemed to fall over us, and everything began to shift. My husband, who had once been the most cheerful and thoughtful person I'd ever known, started to change. The joy in his eyes dimmed, his laughter faded, and soon he became a man I barely recognized. He grew distant, cold as if a wall had been erected between us that I couldn't break through. It was painful to watch this transformation, To see the man I loved slip away, replaced by someone filled with silent resentment. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. It felt as though my inability to give him children had wounded him deeply, as if it had stolen away the future he'd envisioned. He never said it outright, but in his eyes, I could see the disappointment, the unspoken accusation. It was as though he held me responsible for this void in his life, for the loss of a legacy he had always dreamed of. Over time, that quiet disappointment turned into bitterness, a bitterness that slowly poisoned our relationship. He began to blame me openly, saying that because I couldn't bear children, our family would have no one to inherit his property and that his hard work would lead to nothing. He would remind me, sometimes with biting words, that without a child, our lives held no future, no purpose. On the worst days, his anger would erupt like a storm. He would shout, his words sharp and cutting, his frustration and resentment spilling over. And sometimes, his anger would go further, escalating to physical violence that left me both physically and emotionally bruised. The pain was unbearable. Not just the physical pain, but the soul-crushing realization that our love had turned into something so dark and hurtful. I began to question everything I had once believed about marriage, about love, about loyalty. Yet despite his cruelty, his coldness, and his disdain, he would not let me go. He refused to divorce me, even though I felt that we had both become prisoners in a marriage that no longer held any love. He insisted, in a way that seemed more possessive than affectionate, that I was the best wife for him, and that he needed me. But his words felt hollow, devoid of warmth or sincerity, and only served to deepen my sorrow. I felt as though I was trapped in a life where I received neither love nor financial support, bearing the weight of our household alone as he contributed little to our income. Day by day, I struggled to find the strength to continue in a life that brought me so much unhappiness, enduring a marriage that seemed devoid of any kindness or care. What made it even harder was the response from my own family. Whenever I gathered the courage to speak of my suffering, to voice my desire for a different life, my parents would shut me down. They forbade me from considering divorce, warning me that it would disgrace them upon myself. They even threatened, in moments of desperation, that they would rather die than see me break my marriage vows. It was as if my happiness, my well-being, mattered less than upholding appearances. Their words weighed heavily on my heart, filling me with guilt and a sense of duty that I could not shake. Now, as I reflect on those years, I am overwhelmed with a mixture of emotions: sadness, regret, and a bittersweet sense of relief. Sadness for the life I endured, for the years spent in a marriage that left me feeling empty and unworthy. Regret for the choices I felt forced to make, for the dreams I had to bury deep within myself. And relief, knowing that, finally, that chapter of my life has closed. The wounds may never fully heal, and the scars will remain as reminders of the journey I endured. But so will the strength it took to survive, to carry on despite the sorrow that colored so many of my days. Under the constant weight of my family's expectations, I felt trapped in a marriage devoid of warmth, tethered to a commitment that seemed to strip away pieces of my soul every day. It was as though I were living in a cage, with no space to breathe or dream of a life that held even a semblance of joy or freedom. Each day felt like a heavy repetition of the last, where every morning I would wake up with a sense of dread, wondering if this was all my life was meant to be. Yet, despite the misery, I felt powerless to change it. My family's expectations loomed large, and the societal pressure was suffocating. There was no choice but to keep moving forward, bound to a loveless marriage that seemed to stretch endlessly before me. Then, as if fate itself intervened, my husband was diagnosed with cancer 15 years ago. It was a moment that shook me to my core, mixing my emotions in ways I could never have anticipated. I felt sorrow for him, yet there was an undeniable sense of relief too, an almost shocking realization that perhaps, finally, this chapter of my life might close. He fought against the disease, enduring rounds of exhausting treatments, yet his condition only worsened with time. And eventually, he passed away, slipping away quietly, leaving behind a life that had held so little joy for either of us. On the day he died, I began a new journey. Not one I would have chosen under any other circumstances, but one that fate had placed in my path. In the beginning, the loneliness was almost unbearable. The silence was thick and haunting, and I felt like a small, vulnerable creature left alone in a vast, empty world. For so many years, I had grown accustomed to having someone beside me, even if it was a loveless presence. I didn't know what to do with the sudden quiet that enveloped my days. Nights felt long, and the weight of solitude pressed heavily on me. But with time, I began to realize that in this very solitude, there was a kind of healing, a freedom I had never felt before. The silence, once frightening, became a balm to my heart. No longer did I need to brace myself for harsh words or steel myself against the resentment I had long harbored. In that quiet, I found a kind of peace I had never known, a peace that felt deeply restorative. Looking back, I sometimes wonder if this was the life I was meant to live all along. When my husband passed at the age of 61, it felt as though a burden had been lifted. Meanwhile, I was blessed with my health, sparing me countless visits to hospitals and medical appointments. I had never had the luxury of independence before, and now, with my health intact, I found a chance to embrace it fully. Over the years, I have remained in good health, free from the usual ailments that afflict so many in old age. And with each passing year, I have saved on medical expenses, gradually building a financial security that once felt unimaginable. My pension arrives regularly every month. Not a large sum, but it's enough for a simple life. I have learned to find joy in this simplicity, cherishing each small blessing that comes my way. In truth, I don't long for the world's grand pleasures or indulgences. My heart finds its deepest healing in the small, quiet moments of daily life. There is a profound contentment in brewing a pot of tea and savoring it in the peace of my own home, free from anyone's judgment. Watching gentle television shows that make me smile or revisiting my love for cooking, these have become rituals that anchor my days. I've also come to enjoy my little trips to the nearby market. Every day, I buy just what I need, taking pleasure in the slow, thoughtful selection of fresh produce and other essentials. On my walks home, I often stop at the park, taking in the natural beauty around me. These small, unhurried routines have brought a quiet satisfaction that fills my heart. Over the years, I've realized that I have no urge to venture far beyond this little world I've created. I no longer feel the desire to seek out new things or experiences. There is a gentle fulfillment in the familiar, in knowing that I am in control of my life, however modest it may be. Social gatherings and interactions with others have become less appealing, and I rarely attend them. Instead, I cherish my solitude and the sanctuary of my home. It's a peaceful, safe space where I am free to be myself, away from the expectations or opinions of others. This life, though simple, feels entirely my own. As I grow older, I find myself less and less inclined to buy new clothes or keep up with any kind of fashion. The clothes I have worn for years have softened with time, molding themselves to my body in a way that feels comforting. The familiar fabric, worn down by years of use, holds a kind of warmth and reassurance. Each piece has a story, and wearing them brings a sense of continuity, a reminder of the journey I have been on. These small, seemingly insignificant things have come to mean so much, bringing me a peace that no luxury could ever offer. Living alone has given me freedoms I had never known before. My monthly expenses are modest, only about 15,000 yen, and my pension more than covers them, allowing me a little extra each month. There's no need for extravagance, nor do I feel any deprivation. My life feels stable and, for the first time, free of financial concerns. I am grateful for this stability. It allows me to focus on the things that truly matter to me, rather than worrying about what I lack. However, life's gentle rhythms are occasionally disrupted by reminders that time waits for no one. I've begun to notice small but steady changes in my body. Where once I could walk to the market with ease, Now I find myself slowing down, my breath shortening, my hands and feet trembling as I navigate familiar paths. The independence I have cherished for so long is starting to feel precarious. I cannot ignore these signs. Each tremor, each moment of weakness, feels like a quiet reminder that time is slipping away, and I cannot hold on to my health forever. For many years, I prided myself on my self-sufficiency and my ability to handle everything on my own. But as I approach 75, I have to accept the reality that my body is changing. On my trips to the market, I now have to stop and rest several times, each pause a reminder of my fragility. It is a humbling experience, one that brings a bittersweet blend of acceptance and sorrow. I know that a day may come when I can no longer live alone, when I may have to rely on others for help with even the simplest tasks. And though this thought fills me with a quiet sadness, I also feel a deep sense of gratitude for the years I have been able to live in peace, in the home that has become my sanctuary. This journey, though marked by pain and loss, has ultimately led me to a place of deep, personal contentment. I have discovered a kind of happiness that requires no grand gestures, no wealth or luxury. I have found peace in simplicity, joy in solitude, and strength in self-reliance. And as I continue down this path, however long it may last, I am grateful for each quiet day, each familiar comfort, and each moment of gentle peace. As I began to consider how I wanted to spend my later years, I found myself not only making practical decisions, but also confronting deep, emotional questions about comfort, stability, and independence. It wasn't just about logistics. It was about holding on to my identity and everything that mattered to me. In our fast-paced modern world, retirement often funnels people into three main paths: living with children and family, hiring a caregiver for help at home, or moving into a nursing home for around-the-clock care. But for me, things were different. I have no children to look after me, and no close family to lean on in my older age. My options were narrowed to either hiring a caregiver who could help me remain in my own home or entering a nursing home. The thought of moving into a nursing home immediately filled me with a sense of dread. I've always cherished my freedom fiercely, right down to the small, daily routines I've built over the years. Ever since I was a child, I've been someone who values independence. The idea of surrendering to someone else's rules, living by a clock that wasn't my own, felt like giving up a part of my very soul. I knew, deep down, that my happiness was tied to staying in the place I knew best, surrounded by memories that reminded me of who I am. My home is more than just a place. It's a haven filled with stories and moments that define my life. Each room holds a memory, each corner a piece of my journey. Here, I am free to live at my own pace, free from rules, free from judgment. It is a place that holds the essence of who I am, a space that is comforting, familiar, and filled with my personal history. In my own home, I can wake up and go to bed whenever I choose. I can sit in silence or play my favorite music without fear of disturbing others or bending to someone else's schedule. It's a place that allows me to just be, without any demands or expectations. So, after much thought, I made my decision. I would hire a caregiver who could come to me, allowing me to stay here, in my sanctuary. But even as I found a sense of peace in my decision, I knew there were hurdles ahead. Securing caregiving services wouldn't be easy or cheap. To understand what I was truly facing, I visited the community center for a consultation, hoping for a clearer picture of the costs involved. I learned that hiring a caregiver for basic assistance, help with daily activities but not full-time care, would run around 75,000 yen per month. If I needed more comprehensive support, the cost would exceed 90,000 yen monthly. Hearing this, I felt a knot form in my stomach. I had expected expenses, of course, but not to this extent. My pension is only 45,000 yen each month, barely half of what I'd need just for minimal care. And though I have some savings set aside, relying solely on them would drain them within 3 to 5 years, leaving me vulnerable and financially exposed. I walked out of the community center feeling unsettled, a cloud of worry following me as I made my way home. The numbers kept swirling in my head, each one a reminder of the uncertainty ahead. What if I outlived my savings? What if I needed more care as I aged? What would happen if my independence was threatened, not by choice but by necessity? These thoughts weighed heavily on me. Unable to sit with these emotions indoors, I decided to go outside to clear my mind, hoping that the simple act of sitting in the sun might bring me a moment of clarity or at least a break from the stress. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. I found an empty bench and settled into it, letting the warmth of the sun wash over me, grounding me, if only for a few minutes. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, hoping the open sky might offer some comfort. Just then, I was startled by the sound of a moving truck pulling up in front of my building. I watched curiously as a young woman, likely in her early 30s, directed the movers with quiet confidence. Beside her stood a small child, clinging to her hand and watching the flurry of activity with wide eyes. I recognized her new apartment immediately. It was just across the hall from mine. I remembered an elderly couple had lived there for years, a gentle, reserved pair in their 60s. Their only son worked far away and, from what I could tell, rarely visited. They had no daughters, and in many ways, I often wondered if they, too, faced the same challenges I was now grappling with. As I watched the young woman move into their old home, a wave of nostalgia and sadness washed over me. I couldn't help but think about the couple who had lived there before. They had been polite, quiet, and kind, always there, yet always a little distant, as if they were waiting for something or someone to fill their home with life once more. And now, here was this young mother and her child, bringing in boxes, laughter, and new energy. It felt like a symbolic moment, a reminder of the cycles of life, how one chapter ends and another begins, often without warning. Watching this new family settle in, I felt both comforted and saddened. It reminded me that time doesn't stop. It moves forward, bringing change that we must learn to accept, even when it feels difficult. In that moment, I realized how much I longed for connection, for a sense of belonging that stretched beyond these walls. Aging can feel like a solitary journey, but maybe it doesn't have to be. Perhaps, just as I watch this new family move in, there's a way for me to open up, to find a community within my own space, even if it's just across the hall. The thought of extending a hand, of building small connections in this new stage of life, offered me a quiet hope. Yes, there are challenges, and yes, I still have uncertainties to face. But as I sat there on that bench, watching life unfold before me, I found a small sense of peace, knowing that even as things change, there is still room for new beginnings. Driven by an undeniable curiosity, I approached the woman, wondering about the fate of the elderly couple who had once lived in the apartment. Memories of seeing them on their evening walks, their hands intertwined like lifelong partners bound by love and habit, filled my mind. I asked gently, "Where did the elderly couple who used to live here go?" She looked up with a soft, kind expression and responded, "They moved to be with their son. He recently retired and settled in Cho, so they wanted to be close to him in this new stage of life." As she continued, I noticed a sense of tranquility in her voice, as though she, too, understood the significance of familial bonds. She explained that she had purchased the apartment, giving it a fresh start. But something about her demeanor, her quiet strength, hinted at a story beneath the surface. I felt compelled to ask, "And where is your husband? Why isn't he helping you with such a big move?" A brief pause hung in the air, and I saw a flicker of sadness in her eyes. She seemed to steady herself, offering a small, resilient smile before answering, "I'm divorced. There is no husband to help with this. I've been doing everything on my own." Her words were calm but carried a profound weight. At that moment, I felt an immense respect for her resilience. It wasn't just that she had moved her life into a new home. She had likely carried countless burdens, each one shaping the quiet strength that now stood before me. As she offered a polite farewell and turned to organize her new space, I watched her walk away, silently cheering her on in my heart. I wanted her to find happiness here, to feel at home, to know that she wasn't truly alone in this world. Days passed uneventfully, until one evening, as I was settling down after dinner, a loud knock shattered the peace of my home. The sound was urgent, almost desperate. I rushed to the door, and there she stood, the same woman, her face drained of color, her breaths shallow and labored. She was clutching her pregnant belly, her young son by her side, gripping her hand tightly as if sensing his mother's distress. I will never forget the sheer look of panic in her eyes as she gasped, "Please, my stomach hurts so much. I need to get to the hospital right away. Would you be able to look after my son?" Her request struck a chord deep within me. Here was a woman, visibly in agony, with no one to turn to, seeking help from a neighbor. I took her son's hand immediately, reassuring her that he would be safe with me. But as I looked into her eyes, which were glistening with both pain and fear, I knew I couldn't just let her face this alone. She was trembling, a cold sweat breaking out on her forehead, and her knees seemed about to buckle under the weight of her condition. My heart ached, knowing that she was fighting not only physical pain but also the emotional toll of facing this alone. Without a second thought, I called for an ambulance, insisting on accompanying her to the hospital. Her relief was visible, a small but grateful smile that faded quickly as a new wave of pain took over. I could see how much she was trying to hold herself together, for her son, for herself. The ambulance arrived swiftly, and together we rushed to the hospital, every bump in the road seeming to amplify her pain. At the hospital, she was immediately taken in for an examination. I stayed close, keeping her son occupied as we waited for any news. His small fingers gripped mine tightly, sensing the tension around him, his innocent eyes filled with questions he couldn't yet voice. A doctor soon approached us, his face serious. "She has acute chorioamnionitis," he explained, his tone grave. "We need to operate immediately to prevent any further risk to both her and the baby. If her water breaks, the situation could become critical." The news hit me like a wave. I could see the terror in her eyes as she tried to process the words. She glanced at me, her face pale, tears pooling in her eyes. Voice trembling, she whispered, "But I don't have money for surgery. I can't afford it. I'll just have to manage with painkillers and hope it's enough." Her hands clutched her belly protectively, and her fear was palpable. She was willing to endure unbearable pain, to risk her own life, because of financial hardship. The doctor shook his head, his expression stern. "The painkillers won't be enough. The infection could spread quickly, and if her water breaks, we could lose both mother and child." In that intense, heart-wrenching moment, I knew I couldn't let this woman, this strong, resilient woman who had already faced so much, suffer alone. I couldn't bear the thought of her enduring such pain or losing her child because of financial limitations. Without a second thought, I turned to the doctor and said firmly, "I'll cover the costs. Please, do whatever it takes to keep her and her baby safe." Her eyes widened, and for a brief second, her pain seemed to vanish, replaced by a look of pure gratitude and disbelief. Tears welled up and trickled down her cheeks as she looked at me, her lips quivering, unable to speak. In that vulnerable moment, I saw a woman who had faced so many hardships alone, finally receiving help. She nodded silently, her eyes expressing a gratitude too profound for words. As she was wheeled into the operating room, I remained in the waiting area, clutching her son's hand. He looked up at me, sensing that something big was happening but not fully understanding. "Is Mama going to be okay?" he asked in a small, wavering voice. I knelt beside him, giving his hand a gentle squeeze. "Yes," I said softly, with as much conviction as I could muster. "She's strong, and she's getting the help she needs." In that waiting room, time seemed to stretch endlessly, each minute heavy with worry and hope. I thought of the incredible strength she had shown, moving into her new home alone, facing challenges with a quiet resilience that many would find overwhelming. And now, even in this terrifying moment, she was holding on, fighting for her child's future. As I sat there with her son, my thoughts drifted to the unexpected bond that had formed between us. Life has a way of connecting people, especially in moments of vulnerability and need. And in helping her, I felt I had found a deeper purpose, a way to bring a small light into the life of someone who truly deserved it. When the doctor finally returned, his expression softened. The surgery was a success. She and the baby are safe, he informed me with a reassuring nod. A wave of relief washed over me, and I squeezed her son's hand a little tighter, whispering, "Your mom is going to be just fine." His face lit up with a smile, and I felt a profound sense of joy that I had been able to help, to be there when she needed someone most. Later, when she recovered, she looked at me with a warmth and gratitude that words could never capture. Her journey, her strength, and our shared experience left an indelible mark on my heart. We had crossed paths as strangers, but through this profound experience, we had become something more. Two people brought together by fate, sharing an unspoken connection that would last a lifetime. Once all the preparations for her surgery were finally completed, and the admission procedures signed and approved, I learned her full name, Aiko Sato. It was a simple piece of information, yet hearing her name for the first time felt strangely significant. The name lingered in my mind, filling me with an even deeper warmth and sense of connection toward her than I'd felt before. It was as though knowing her name created an invisible bridge between us, a bond beyond mere acquaintance. As she lay in the hospital bed, still pale from her recent ordeal, I felt my heart swell with a protective affection I hadn't expected. Thankfully, the surgery went smoothly. However, the doctors advised that Aiko would need to remain in the hospital for another 3 days. She required close monitoring and ongoing treatment to ensure a full recovery. The cost was substantial, soaring well above 100,000 yen, but I never thought twice about staying by her side. I wanted to be there, to offer any comfort I could as she healed. Her young son clung to my side with wide, trusting eyes, and I found myself tending to him too, ensuring he was fed, entertained, and comforted as his mother recovered. The hospital staff, recognizing both my advanced age and the presence of the little boy by my side, treated us with great kindness. Their consideration touched me deeply. The nurses and aides offered gentle support, frequently checking in on us to see if we needed anything and even bringing snacks for the boy. They prepared an extra bed in Aiko's hospital room, allowing me to stay close without needing to leave the hospital. For those 3 days, it felt as though we were our own little family, bound by shared moments of compassion and kindness. After her discharge, Aiko still required time to regain her strength fully. It was a slow and careful recovery. Though my health was not what it used to be, I found myself stepping up, filling my days with new purpose. I prepared nutritious meals, cooked with care, and made sure she had all she needed to heal properly. Every meal I prepared, and every errand I ran felt like a small offering of gratitude for her presence in my life. Watching her gradually regain her energy, I felt a quiet joy that brightened my days. And I could see that Aiko, too, was deeply moved. She often looked at me with soft, appreciative eyes, sometimes holding my hand with a tenderness that felt like a promise. One afternoon, she looked at me, her voice filled with warmth, and said, "You've been my lifesaver." The sincerity in her tone left me speechless for a moment. I hadn't done anything extraordinary, yet to her, I had become someone she could rely on, someone who had been there when she needed it most. She continued, "When I learned you were living alone, without children, I felt a need to give back. If it's all right with you, please let me take care of you, too." She promised to look after me, for as long as I would allow her to, with a dedication that filled me with gratitude and a sense of wonder. Her offer stirred something deeply in me, something I hadn't felt in years. Yet, as grateful as I was, a part of me hesitated. After all, we weren't related by blood, and the thought of placing such a responsibility on her, a young mother with her own life and challenges, felt unfair. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. But Aiko was as sincere as she was selfless. Despite her long days working to provide for herself and her son, she began visiting me every evening, bringing groceries, preparing meals, and even tidying up my modest home. I hadn't known such a feeling of care and companionship for a long time. Each evening, as she brought warmth into my home, I was overcome with both gratitude and a lingering sense of guilt. She already had her hands full, yet here she was, giving even more. Several times, I tried to offer her money as a token of my appreciation, feeling it was only right to give something in return. But each time, Aiko shook her head with a gentle smile, saying, "It's nothing. I'm just helping out a little." Her refusal of any repayment only made me more appreciative of her kindness and her genuine heart. Then, one evening, a new detail about Aiko came to light, one that brought both admiration and concern. I learned that she was responsible for a substantial housing loan, amounting to 45,000 yen every month, a daunting expense for a single mother juggling so many responsibilities. The weight of that financial burden hung over her, yet she still found time, energy, and heart to be by my side, offering her help with a grace that humbled me. I was profoundly moved, realizing how much she sacrificed despite her struggles. I saw her carrying a weight that few people could bear, yet her spirit remained undaunted, generous, and caring. As I watched her work tirelessly day after day, an idea began to form in my mind, one that both surprised and excited me. It was bold, perhaps even a bit audacious, but I couldn't ignore the sense of rightness I felt about it. Taking a deep breath, I finally gathered the courage to speak my heart. "Aiko," I began, feeling a mix of hope and vulnerability. "I live alone in a house that feels far too big for just one person. And, truthfully, there are times when I feel very lonely. I can't help but worry about what might happen if I fell ill suddenly, with no one nearby to notice." I paused, letting the words sink in, then continued, "If you don't mind, would you consider moving in with me? You'd be saving on your monthly loan, and it would be a relief for me to know someone is here. We could look after each other." I looked at her, waiting for her reaction, my heart racing with the anticipation of her response. It felt like so much more than just a practical solution. It felt like the possibility of a new beginning. A chance to no longer face life's challenges alone, but with someone who cared and understood. And in that moment, I realized how much Aiko's presence had come to mean to me, filling a void I hadn't acknowledged before. If Aiko accepted, it would bring peace to both of us. She could rent out her place, easing her financial strain, and I would have the companionship I hadn't known I longed for. It was, I hoped, a solution that would lift both our spirits. And as I waited, I felt that, for the first time in a long while, I was no longer just facing the passing of days, but opening the door to something deeply meaningful. When I first shared my idea with Aiko, the look of surprise and joy on her face was utterly heartwarming. Her eyes sparkled with happiness, and her smile was infectious as she exclaimed, "Yes, please." That simple yet enthusiastic response felt like an affirmation, a sign that perhaps our paths were meant to intertwine beautifully. Shortly after that fateful conversation, Aiko made a bold and transformative decision. She rented out her own home and chose to move in with me, bringing her young son along for the journey. As I stood by, observing her on moving day, a wave of emotion washed over me. Watching Aiko step into this new chapter of her life filled me with a premonition that something profoundly special was beginning. It wasn't merely a change in living arrangements. It felt like the dawn of a new era in my life, as if the universe had conspired to infuse my days with purpose and joy. I was filled with a sense of excitement and hope, aware that my life was about to change in ways I could never have anticipated. From the very first meal Aiko prepared, my home began to transform into a warm, inviting sanctuary. The delicious aromas wafting through the air were like a balm for my soul, and with each dish she lovingly crafted, it was as if she was weaving a tapestry of care and love into the very fabric of our home. The once quiet and somewhat somber atmosphere was now alive with the laughter and chatter of her son, who, over time, began to feel more comfortable around me. Every time he joyfully called me Grandma, my heart swelled with emotion. It was as if the universe was sending me little reminders of the beauty of family and the nostalgia of my youth. Those simple words resonated deeply within me, bringing back cherished memories of my children, and reminding me of the joys of motherhood that I had experienced in years gone by. Although I never directly handed Aiko money, I found solace in knowing that I was able to provide her with some semblance of financial stability and security. It felt rewarding to help her carve out a new path for herself and to offer support during a time when she needed it most. I was drawn to her spirit and resilience, and it was evident that she was as dedicated to our newfound arrangement as I was. We were two women navigating life's complexities together, and it felt like we were partners in a shared journey toward healing and companionship. What struck me most was how Aiko never expected the depth of care and consideration she offered me in my twilight years. Her selflessness completely dispelled the loneliness that had begun to settle into my heart, filling my days with a newfound sense of purpose and fulfillment. I had often felt like I was drifting through life, but now, each day was rich with meaning and connection. It was surreal to think that someone who had once grappled with feelings of loneliness and loss could now bask in the glow of a peaceful, fulfilling existence, surrounded by warmth and laughter. Life, I realized, is not always laden with pain. It is also filled with unexpected moments of hope and joy waiting to be discovered. Aiko and her son were living proof that, sometimes, it is the smallest acts of kindness and the simplest gestures of compassion that can lead to the most profound happiness. As I embraced my new reality, I found myself cherishing every moment spent together with this irreplaceable little family. Our shared laughter echoed through the halls of my home, filling it with a vibrant energy I had long thought lost. Through this experience, I have come to understand the immense power of human love and empathy. The bonds we forge with others can transcend blood ties and circumstances, creating connections that are just as meaningful, if not more so. Especially as we age, the void left by the absence of children or nearby relatives can weigh heavily on our hearts. Feelings of loneliness can creep in, threatening to engulf us in despair. Yet, this journey with Aiko has taught me that by opening our hearts to sharing and genuine kindness, we can combat loneliness and uncover new, enriching connections. The warmth and gratitude that Aiko and I have shown each other are more than mere gestures. They are a testament to our appreciation for one another and proof of the sincere, enduring affection we share. Walking together through life, with an understanding that transcends material concerns, has brought us the unparalleled joy of companionship. We have created a sanctuary where love flourishes, where two women, each with her history and struggles, have found solace, strength, and joy in one another's presence. As I reflect on this journey, I am filled with a deep sense of gratitude. Aiko's decision to embrace this new life with me was not just a change in living arrangements. It was the blossoming of a beautiful friendship, a union of spirits seeking connection and love. Together, we are redefining what family means, proving that it is not merely a matter of blood, but rather a tapestry of shared experiences, compassion, and understanding. In the twilight of my years, I have found a partner in Aiko, a source of light that brightens my life in ways I never thought possible. Our story is a celebration of resilience, hope, and the transformative power of human connection. It is a reminder that, even in our most vulnerable moments, we can find joy and companionship in the unlikeliest of places. The true essence of connection lies in our ability to share not just the joyous moments of life, but also the sorrows and challenges that inevitably come our way. For elderly individuals, this connection becomes even more vital, as having someone to share these experiences with can bring an unparalleled sense of warmth and belonging. The simple act of knowing there is someone out there who genuinely cares, someone who loves them unconditionally and is willing to invest their time and energy, transforms the mundane into the extraordinary. It is more precious than any material possession or fleeting achievement. The bond that develops through mutual support and understanding can fill the heart with profound happiness, one that resonates deeply and lingers long after moments are shared. Here are some heartfelt pieces of advice for elderly individuals seeking to cultivate deeper connections and enrich their lives. Open your heart to receive love. Leaping to open up to others can be daunting, especially if you've spent a lifetime being self-sufficient and independent. However, welcoming the possibility of forming new connections, whether with neighbors, longtime friends, or even strangers you encounter in daily life, can lead to delightful surprises. Imagine the joy that can spring from a brief conversation in a coffee shop or a smile exchanged with a neighbor while watering their plants. These seemingly small interactions have the potential to blossom into meaningful friendships that bring warmth and companionship. Embrace these moments, for they can illuminate your life in ways you might not expect. Remember, you are worthy of love and care. It's common for older adults to feel like they are burdens or undeserving of love and support. Yet, every person, regardless of age, possesses intrinsic value and deserves kindness and consideration. Each of us is a unique tapestry of experiences, stories, and lessons learned throughout our lives. Don't hesitate to reach out for assistance when you need it, whether that's asking a friend for help with groceries or seeking emotional support during tough times. Isolation can be a heavy burden, but allowing others to show their love for you enriches both your life and theirs. Remember, each connection you foster adds to the fabric of your existence, creating a rich tapestry of relationships. Maintain independence and self-reliance. As you journey through the later years of life, you may face more challenges that test your resilience. However, it is essential to hold on to your independence and strive to handle what you can on your own. This autonomy not only bolsters your self-confidence but also instills a sense of purpose and vitality in your daily routine. Embrace the small victories of daily living, whether it's preparing your favorite meal, tending to a garden, or pursuing hobbies that ignite your passion. These activities serve as reminders that you still have much to offer and enjoy. However, it's equally important to recognize that accepting help from others is not a sign of weakness. Rather, it is a powerful way to build and deepen connections. By letting others assist you, you demonstrate trust, inviting them into your life and reinforcing those vital bonds of friendship and community. Find joy in simple living. The pursuit of happiness does not have to be extravagant or complicated. Often, it is found in the simplest of pleasures. A steaming cup of tea enjoyed on a quiet morning, the pages of a well-loved book, or the tender act of nurturing plants in a garden. These small, yet profoundly satisfying rituals can provide moments of peace and tranquility that help ground us in the present. By savoring each moment, you cultivate gratitude and appreciation for the little things that life has to offer. Allow yourself to be fully present, letting go of future anxieties that may cloud your joy. The beauty of these simple pleasures lies in their ability to connect you with the here and now, enriching your experience of life. Build a support network. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. If you find yourself lacking immediate family nearby, do not despair. There are countless ways to create a strong support network. Seek out local community groups, consider joining book clubs, or explore volunteer opportunities that resonate with your interests. These connections provide not just companionship but also opportunities to contribute to the lives of others, forging bonds that can be deeply rewarding. Engaging with others in shared activities can create lasting friendships and foster a sense of belonging that combats loneliness. Remember, everyone benefits from connection, and by helping others, you often find help for yourself. Love is an abundant force that knows no bounds. It doesn't diminish no matter how freely it is given. The beauty of sharing love is that it enriches both the giver and the receiver. Small acts of kindness, such as listening intently to someone's story, offering comforting words during difficult times, or even being present for someone in need, can make a world of difference. Always hold in high regard the importance of both giving and receiving love, as this reciprocal exchange is at the heart of human connection. Consider the story of an elderly woman who, during a particularly challenging time, found joy and fulfillment by helping a younger individual named Aiko. Through this act of kindness, she not only provided support but also opened herself up to a new family, forming special friendships that brought her newfound joy and peace in her later years. Such moments remind us that every act of love has the potential to create ripples that extend far beyond our immediate circle, cultivating an environment of kindness and compassion that enhances our shared human experience. As we draw this discussion to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on the profound insights we've shared today about the importance of connection in our lives, especially as we age. What have you learned so far about fostering relationships and embracing the beauty of love and support? I encourage you to take a moment to think about one specific lesson from today's video that resonates with you and consider how you can incorporate it into your daily life. Whether it's opening your heart to new friendships, finding joy in simple moments, or building a supportive community, every small step counts. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. What's one thing you've learned that you will bring into practice in your life? Your insights can inspire others on their journey as well. If you liked this video and found it meaningful, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. By doing so, you help us reach more people and spread the message of connection and love. Thank you for being a part of our community.